Hey everyone, welcome back to BullishBooks. I'm Lei, and today we're going to talk about something that sounds completely backwards. The idea that the key to becoming number one in your field might actually be quitting more things, not fewer. I know. That flies in the face of everything we've been told. Grit, hustle, winners never quit. But here's what I've come to believe. The never quit mantra is one of the most damaging pieces of conventional wisdom out there. And today, I want to show you exactly why. By the end of this episode, you're going to have a completely different framework for how you think about persistence and quitting. You'll understand the 3 types of paths you could be on right now, and you'll have 3 concrete questions you can ask yourself to figure out whether you should push through or walk away. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with a question that sounds simple, but runs surprisingly deep. How do you actually define success? Most people pause when I ask that. Some say financial freedom, others say impact or legacy. But when you really strip it back, past the Instagram quotes and the TED Talk philosophies, you land on something remarkably consistent. Success means being the best at what you do. Not good, not solid, not well regarded in the industry. The best. And here's the thing, your behavior as a consumer proves this every single day. When you need a surgeon, are you Googling competent surgeon near me? No. You want the best one available. When you're in an unfamiliar city and you're hungry, you're not searching for average Thai food near me. You're searching for the best. We all gravitate toward number one, and the market rewards that preference aggressively. Economists have a name for this pattern. It's called Zipf's law. It shows up everywhere from word frequency to city populations to market share. And what it tells us is that the top performer doesn't just earn a little more than the runner-up. The rewards are exponentially skewed. The number one movie in any given week doesn't earn slightly more than number 2. It can earn 10 times as much. Google doesn't hold a slim majority of the search market. It holds over 90% of it. Bing, DuckDuckGo, Yahoo, they're splitting the scraps. This isn't a coincidence. It's a structural feature of how markets work. When options are overwhelming, and today they always are, people default to one simple shortcut. Who's the best? Best-selling book. Top-rated restaurant. Most followed expert. Our world's expanding complexity makes us more dependent on rankings, not less. And those rankings compress most of the value into a tiny sliver at the very top. So if you accept that being number one matters, really matters, the real question becomes, what does it actually take to get there? And here's where I want to push back on everything you've been told. Society's answer is tenacity, grit, relentless persistence. Winners never quit, and quitters never win. It's been drilled into us since we were kids, reinforced by every sports movie and motivational poster we've ever seen. But when you actually study what successful people do, you find something that doesn't match the mythology at all. Successful people quit constantly. They just quit the right things. Think about Steve Jobs. He didn't persist with the Apple Lisa when it failed. He pivoted to the Macintosh. When smartphones emerged, he didn't insist on staying in the music player business. He cannibalized the iPod to create the iPhone. And when Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, one of the first things he did was eliminate over 70% of Apple's product line. He quit aggressively to focus on the handful of things Apple could genuinely be the best at. Jack Welch built GE into one of the most valuable companies in history with a rule that felt like heresy at the time. If GE couldn't be number 1 or number 2 in an industry, they would exit it entirely. No sentiment, no attachment to sunk costs. He quit the dead ends and freed up the resources to dominate the markets that actually mattered. Jeff Bezos shut down the Amazon Fire Phone after just 5 months. That cost the company around $170 million. But holding on to a failing product out of pride would have cost far more in capital, management attention, and opportunity cost. And in the startup world, we have an entire vocabulary for this, the pivot. When Slack started, it was a gaming company. When Instagram launched, it was a complicated location-based check-in app called Bourbon. None of these companies never quit. They quit the wrong thing to pursue the right thing, and that decision made them billions. I saw this play out in my own PhD years too. The researchers who became legends in their fields weren't the ones who clung to dying hypotheses out of ego or sunk cost fallacy. They were the ones with the intellectual honesty to recognize when a line of inquiry was a dead end, and the courage to redirect their energy towards something with genuine potential. The ones who couldn't let go? They spent careers publishing incrementally in shrinking fields, wondering why recognition never came. So the real skill isn't persistence, it's strategic quitting, knowing with clarity when to push through resistance and when to cut your losses and redirect. But how do you make that distinction? Let me give you a framework. There are 3 fundamental shapes that describe virtually every situation where you're trying to achieve something meaningful. The first one is called the dip. The dip is the hard part in the middle. You start something new, a business, a career, a skill, and at first, it's energizing. Everything is fresh. You're learning fast. The feedback loop is genuinely rewarding. Then the dip hits. Progress slows. The easy gains are behind you. The novelty wears off. The obstacles compound. What used to feel exciting now just feels like grinding. In a startup, the dip is the period between we have a cool idea and a few early adopters, and we have a scalable, profitable business. It's the valley of death that kills most ventures. Not because the idea was bad, but because the founders ran out of resources or clarity before they made it through. In a career, the dip is the years between entry level and genuine mastery. Every field has one. Organic chemistry is the dip for pre-med students, deliberately designed to screen out everyone who isn't seriously committed. The bar exam is the dip for aspiring lawyers. The brutal early years of building a sales pipeline are the dip for entrepreneurs. And here's what makes the dip paradoxical. It exists because becoming great is hard. If it were easy, everyone would do it, and being great wouldn't be worth anything. The dip is the mechanism that creates scarcity, and scarcity is what makes excellence valuable. The critical insight about the dip is this: it's survivable, and getting through it is worth it. The dip is actually a shortcut. The long way around is mediocrity, a lifetime of trying things and abandoning them before they pay off. But, and this is crucial, not every dip is worth pushing through. You have to choose your dip wisely. If the resources required to reach the other side vastly exceed what you have, the smart move isn't to persist blindly. It's to find a smaller market, a more targeted niche, a more achievable summit. There's a brilliant analogy I love for this: the bicycle tire. The first 10 pounds of air you pump into a completely flat tire do nothing useful. The last 10 pounds that take it to full pressure, that's where the value lives. All of your effort needs to be directed at getting one tire to full pressure, not inflating 10 different tires to 30% each. Now, the second curve is the cul-de-sac. A cul-de-sac is a dead-end street. You drive in, you look around, you realize there's nowhere to go, and you turn around. The professional cul-de-sac works the same way, except people often don't realize they're in one. You work and work and work, and nothing fundamentally changes. You're not getting worse, but you're not getting better either. The ceiling is permanent. I watched this happen to talented people throughout my academic career. A senior postdoc I knew had been in the same lab for 7 years, technically skilled, genuinely hardworking, but the field had shifted around him. Funding was shrinking, and every year looked roughly like the last. He wasn't failing, but he also wasn't progressing. That's the cul-de-sac, the comfortable dead end where you can keep moving without actually going anywhere. The tragedy isn't just wasted effort, it's opportunity cost. Every year you spend in a dead-end situation is a year you're not building towards something that could actually take you somewhere. This is why the cul-de-sac deserves your most aggressive quitting behavior, not deliberation, not patience. The moment you recognize you're in a dead end, the most valuable thing you can do is get out fast and redirect that energy toward a dip worth fighting through. And the third curve, the rarest, and in some ways the most dangerous, is the cliff. A cliff situation is one where everything keeps improving right up until it suddenly collapses. Think about Blockbuster. Their business kept working until it suddenly didn't. By the time the collapse was obvious, there was no time to pivot. Kodak was enormously profitable in film photography well into the digital age. Newspaper advertising revenue looked stable for years, while online alternatives quietly undermined the entire model. The cliff doesn't announce itself, it just arrives. If you suspect you're on a cliff, the advice is unambiguous. Quit now, not later. The longer you wait, the harder the fall. So now you understand the three curves, but you still have a real decision to make in the messy middle of real circumstances. So let me give you 3 diagnostic questions to help you figure out which path you're on. Question 1, am I panicking right now? This is the most underrated question in the bunch. Here's the thing about panic. It's a terrible decision-making state. When you're panicking, the pain of continuing feels overwhelming, and the pain of starting over feels abstract. So you quit, and then you regret it. The best strategic decisions are made in advance when you can think clearly. Write down your quitting criteria before you start. What metrics would make this worth continuing? What would signal a genuine cul-de-sac? Set these parameters while you're calm. That gives you a compass when the inevitable difficult moments arrive. Joe Biden dropped out of the 1988 presidential race over what, in retrospect, was a relatively minor controversy, a plagiarism issue around a speech. In the moment, the pain was acute, and he couldn't see through it to the other side. He quit. Decades later, he ran again and won the presidency. Had he stayed in 1988 and leaned into the controversy, he might have emerged stronger. He quit when he was panicking. That's the wrong time. When the pressure is greatest, when quitting feels most urgently necessary, your resolve to push through should be at its highest. That moment of maximum discomfort is not a signal you're failing. It's often a signal you're close to breaking through the hardest part of the dip. Question 2. Who am I trying to influence? This one reshapes the quitting calculus completely. There is an enormous difference between trying to influence a single person and trying to influence a market. Trying to convince one person who keeps saying no. At a certain point, persistence crosses into desperation. It may genuinely be time to move on and try someone else. But if you're trying to build a position in a market, the math is completely different. Most of the people in that market haven't heard of you yet. They haven't rejected you. They simply haven't encountered you. Every customer you win makes the next customer slightly easier to win. That's a hill you can climb. It compounds. If you're stuck trying to influence one stubborn person, it may be time to redirect toward a market. But if you're frustrated that a market hasn't fully responded yet, that your early traction feels modest compared to your ambitions, that's almost certainly not a signal to quit. That's the dip doing its job. Question 3, what measurable progress am I actually making? Are you moving forward, holding steady, or falling behind? The key word is measurable, not I feel like I'm getting better, or people say I'm on the right track. Those are feelings, not metrics. What are your actual numbers? Customers acquired, revenue growth rate, audience growth, skill benchmarks, whatever the relevant metric is for your specific endeavor. Are those numbers trending in the right direction? And here's an important nuance. Some forms of progress are genuinely hard to measure in the short term. Building a brand takes years before it shows up in revenue. Building deep expertise takes years before it shows up in opportunity. That's real. But there's a difference between progress that's hard to measure right now and no progress whatsoever. If you've been working at something for 3 years with complete consistency and nothing is moving in the right direction, revenue, audience, skills, network, nothing, that deserves serious examination. Is this a dip, or have you been circling a cul-de-sac? Now, before I wrap up, I want to name one more trap, because I've seen it in myself and in almost everyone around me. When most people hit the dip, they don't quit and they don't push harder. They go average. They show up. They do enough. They avoid making waves. They survive. This feels like a reasonable response to difficulty. It's not dramatic. It doesn't carry the social risk of quitting or the exhausting commitment of pushing hard. It's the path of least resistance. But it's a trap. Average in the dip means you're paying all the costs. the time, the energy, the opportunity cost, without ever getting to the other side where the rewards live. You're stuck in the worst possible position, too committed to quit, not committed enough to break through. Think about a woodpecker. It can tap 20 times on each of 1,000 trees and get nowhere, staying perpetually busy. Or it can tap 20,000 times on one tree and get dinner. Depth beats breadth in almost every market. Here's the bottom line that I want to leave you with today. You probably need to quit more things than you're currently quitting. Not the hard things that are genuinely dips worth fighting through. Those deserve your full commitment and your willingness to lean into the discomfort rather than manage your way around it. But the cul-de-sacs? The projects you're maintaining out of habit, sunk cost, or fear of what it would mean to let them go? Those need to go. The business ideas you're keeping alive at 20% effort while they consume 40% of your mental bandwidth? They need a decision, either full commitment or a clean exit. Strategic quitting isn't the absence of persistence, it's the precondition for it. The more ruthlessly you edit the dead ends from your life, the more energy you have to pour into the dips that matter, the ones where pushing through will actually take you somewhere worth going. So use the 3 questions as your compass. Am I panicking right now? Or is this a calm, clear-headed assessment? Am I trying to move one stubborn person? Or am I building a position in a market? And what does the measurable data actually say about the direction I'm heading? Answer those honestly, and you'll know whether to keep going or walk away with your head up and your energy intact. Most people go through life mistaking motion for progress. The rare few who actually become the best in the world are the ones who figure out which dip they want to get to the other side of, and then refuse to stop until they're there. Which dip is yours? And what do you need to quit to get through it? Thanks so much for listening to Bullish Books. If this episode hit home for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And head over to BullishBooks.com for the full written deep dive on this topic. There's a lot more in the post, including the Sara Lee versus Netherlands coffee market case study that I love. The link is in the description. I'm Lei, and I'll see you in the next one.